My name is Cameron Davidson, and this is my YouTube presentation for EDC1200 Assignment 2, How Might Education Mediate Difference and Dominance? This assignment is targeted at Year 6 primary students and addresses the current issue of asylum seekers. If I were to say the words asylum seekers, I could almost guarantee that every person would have an opinion and be nearly just as confident in expecting half of those people to apply a more non-political term of boat people. But what do all those people really understand as someone they are calling a boat person? An asylum seeker can be loosely termed as a refugee. But to understand this term better, we need to look closer at what constitutes a refugee. A refugee can be placed in one of two categories: onshore protection and offshore resettlement. According to the Australian Government fact sheet via the website imi.gov.au, onshore protection is applied to a person who arrives in the country with a valid visa and subsequently applies for protection or asylum. Offshore resettlement divides again into two categories: refugee, for people who are subject to persecution in their home country, who are typically outside their home country and are in need of resettlement, and Special Humanitarian Program, or SHP, for people outside their home country who are subject to substantial discrimination amounting to gross violation of human rights in their home country. In respect to Australian policies, a boat person is someone who arrives in this country without permission, or in other words, unlawfully. In Australia, however, it is not illegal to seek asylum in Australia regardless of whether a person arrives by boat. Chiara Pisano from the website sbs.com.au, written 7th of November 2010, states released figures from the Australian Government regarding the intake of asylum seekers to Australia. For the year of 2009 to 2010, 13,750 places were allocated for acceptance of asylum seekers. 6,000 places were set for offshore resettlement, and 7,750 were set for SHP and onshore protection. Australia accounted for 0.5% of the total world asylum application. So with 13,750 asylum seekers looking for protection in Australia, that is only 0.5% of the world application. That begs the question, why is it such a major media issue? Tony Rossi stated in the course text Culture and Identity, as edited by John Austin 2005, that he considers himself an Australian despite arriving in Australia from England. He had all the advantages. I am white. I speak English as my first language. I have the benefit of what might be loosely termed a good education. He further went on to say, I had greater advantage than the greater majority of Indigenous peoples of this land. Many persons, including the Indigenous communities and those from other countries, do not have such a package of advantage. Do the media therefore subscribe to the notion of white Australia and perpetuate a subcurrent of racism without vocalising it or being seen to intimate it? Or perhaps they just emphasise the aspect of difference. If Australia was truly a multicultural nation, why would a mere 0.5% or 13,750 people cause such an outcry and demand such extensive coverage? Difference is highlighted by Marion Lewis quoting Robbins in 2000, where some envisage and enjoy cosmopolitan complexities, others perceive and often oppose what they see as cultural homogenisation and the erosion of cultural specificity. By taking what seems to be a greater population opposition to boat people, the hegemonic centre enforces a concept of white, which in turn encourages a social and cultural difference. Australia touts itself as a multicultural and diverse nation, one made up of multiple cultures and ideals. The concept of multiculturalism in itself dictates the necessity of disrupting the entrenched power of the dominant white middle-class majority. Lewis McMaster, 2002. By embracing the difference of community and, on a larger scale, nation, the Australian identity can shrug off the perception of being predominantly white. As a collective, we can generate a vibrant and organic identity. Lewis, 2005. As teachers, it becomes incumbent upon us to educate the importance of difference, not just from the way we view society, but from an open and accepting belief that difference is a better way. The foundation we lay for our students become the building blocks for the rest of their lives. Our schools are a conglomeration of diversity and cultural identities, a multicultural community of their own. The immersive nature of being surrounded by people of difference stands to erase preconceived concepts and encourage acceptance. This is part 2 of assignment EDC1200, the event as curriculum. I have chosen to use improvisational drama to present this event as curriculum. I feel the students would find it easier to understand the issues if it was presented to them in activities in which they can enjoy themselves. Ring of Destiny. The purpose of Ring of Destiny is to encourage students to think beyond Australia's borders. The first step is to get an understanding of what students think an asylum seeker is. This will be done utilising the blackboard and noting thoughts as the students call them out. When there are no more ideas from the students, each point would be discussed as to its accuracy or inaccuracy. A large map would be used to identify countries and regions where asylum seekers originate. The map can also be used to track the route an asylum seeker may take in order to reach their final destination. Separate the students into groups and have each group discuss the reasons for a person to seek asylum. Each group could present their ideas to the remainder of the class, and then as a class group, the ideas can be discussed. The pointer of fate is used to highlight the reasons, and in some views a necessity, for a person or family to leave their birth country and seek asylum elsewhere. As a group, the students are asked to act out an activity that they would normally enjoy doing either on a daily basis or at least on a regular basis. The only requirement is that the students must always be moving. 2 of the students are given positions of controller and fate. The first controller is given a drum and asked to set a continuous beat. The students must move as long as the beat is going, but when the drum stops, so must they. Upon a signal given by the teacher, the controller changes the beat to one that is slow and menacing. This is to indicate possible danger. The controller chooses when to stop the beat entirely. The second controller is given a laser pointer and told they are fate, or the person who decides who is to continue with their way of life, are required to join the forces of evil. The students are herded into a circle of chairs which indicate a compound from which they live their lives or leave their friends. The group continues to move to the beat of the drum until the drum stops, when the students must freeze in place. Fate is moving the pointer slowly during the drum beat until the drum beat stops. The student who has a pointer on them at the freeze must leave the circle and join fate on the outside. The controller resumes the beat and the group and fate again move to the beat. If the pointer doesn't rest on anyone, then the group is given a reprieve and the forces of evil miss an opportunity to recruit to their side. This continues until an equal number of students are on both sides, at which point the game ends. The students left are able to live their lives as normal without fear of being forced into a situation or life they don't want. The students chosen by fate leave the life they have always known behind and start on a new path, one which is not what they have chosen or want. In the 2 remaining groups, have the students on butcher's paper list the pros and cons of being in their respective groups. Have the students roll reverse and list the pros and cons of being in the opposite group. Discuss as a whole group and compare any differences. Have the students as a group list any emotions they felt during the course of the game. Winking for freedom is used as a chance for people to escape from the situation which they found themselves in, or gives them a chance to seek asylum in another country. A circle of chairs is placed in the room, all facing towards the centre. One student is selected to stand in the middle of the circle. The students are asked to separate into 2 groups from the game pointer of fate. The free people are asked to be seated in the chairs with the forces of evil standing behind but in between 2 chairs. The student in the middle becomes a country offering refuge and must wink at a free person to tell them they have been chosen to leave the knowledge that their freedom is on borrowed time for the certainty of a life free of terror and reprisal. In order for the free person to escape, they must dive for the student in the middle without being caught or tagged by the forces of evil behind them. If they are tagged, they must return to the chair until they are winked at again, giving them a second chance. When all the free people have been rescued, perform a role reversal and have the people who were chosen by fate sit in the chairs. This gives those people a chance to escape from the life forced upon them and to embrace a life free of terror and reprisal. As a group, discuss the impact of having to wait for a chance to be free. What feelings were invoked by having to wait? What feelings were felt when freedom was attained? Why was escape so important? What were the ramifications of not being able to escape? Conclusion. The dramatisation encourages the students to think about difference in and countries outside of Australia. It asks them to compare their way of life with a country that doesn't benefit from the same advantages. The games are designed to encourage students to recognise that just because a person is from a different country, looks different, or sounds different, doesn't mean that they don't act or behave in the same way as themselves. The aim is to encourage the aspects of diversity and help students see that a change through multiculturalism is a positive development.